Lawrence O'Donnell is in Washington right now with one of the Democratic senators who has very recently declared her position on the use of force. Lawrence?
Thanks, Rachel. Senator Tammy Baldwin, this morning I said, it'd be good to have an undecided senator to interview at this moment in this program. You were undecided this morning. You decided today. Tell us how you made that decision.
Well, this is clearly a global atrocity that's happened. The use of chemical weapons has been addressed in the Chemical Weapons Convention signed on to by 187 countries. And I think a global atrocity demands a global response. There is a path that has been presented to the U.S. Senate that involves unilateral military action in a country that has been involved in a long-running civil war. There are now new developments, new paths that are opening up, and if we're serious about having a global response, we have to give those time to develop. But I also just believe that we cannot act unilaterally. We cannot go it alone time and time again. We have to be able to create the capacity for the global community to respond to atrocities like this.
When you issued your statement today, it was pretty strong. You said that you oppose authorizing military involvement in Syria's civil war, not for one day, not for 60 days, which is one of the versions of the resolution, not for a decade. Is there any version of a resolution that you could find your way to supporting?
Well, again, I want to strengthen the effectiveness of the global response to violations of treaties that matter. All treaties matter, but of course we're talking here about the use of chemical weapons, but we also worry about the proliferation of nuclear weapons and biological weapons. And we can't have a future where the only thing that ever happens is the United States acts alone. We've got to have a buy-in from the global community. Now, I understand the dysfunction of the UN, but we have to strengthen those institutions and their capacity to respond. And as I said, we have a path that's opening up right now that we really need to pursue. I have to say that I'm really hopeful about the developments of the last couple of days. But I want to just take issue with one thing that's prevalent out there, that the belief that it is the threat of force that got us to this moment. I actually think that it was the President's decision to come to Congress so that an international debate ensued. The world's attention is on Syria right now and their use of chemical weapons, and I think this is a moment in which we can get our allies to stand forward and stand with us to respond.
You've been in the intelligence briefings, and you met with the President today with other senators. On the intelligence end, I'm gathering from your statement that you don't have any doubt about the use of chemical weapons by the Assad regime.
That's correct.
Okay. And you went to one of the meetings with the Vice President over the weekend where he was making the case very directly to you. In his case, what did he say about how this use of chemical weapons changes our posture on this, especially in terms of the possibility of those weapons spreading outside of Syria? And was that not in some way compelling to you?
Well, first of all, there's a history. There's a history of use of chemical weapons in the world over nearly a century. And there's been a sad history of inaction in the face of that. So what we decide to do at this moment in some ways becomes precedent-setting in my view. Saddam Hussein used chemical weapons on the Iranians. He also used it on his own Kurdish citizens. The casualties were tens of thousands of people, and there was no world reaction. So we're setting a precedent right now. The precedent that we set, in my mind, has to be a global response to a global atrocity.
Does anyone mention in these closed meetings, if the Saddam case comes up, that the United States knew about that before the fact that we have intelligence information recently released that we actually knew he was going to do it before he did it, and we not only turned a blind eye, we didn't say anything about it before or after?
Well, I have to say that the classified briefings and the non-classified briefings have focused almost exclusively on the current situation. But I did raise questions about the history and the fact that whatever we decide to do, will, in my mind, be a new way of dealing with violations that are crimes against humanity and that violate the humanitarian norms that we have tried to set as a globe, as a world of nations. And therefore, it's so essential that we come together and that we don't act simply in a unilateral fashion.
Now, you're a publicly undecided senator. I just want to get a feeling for how the White House is handling this. Other than the official meetings that you had with the Vice President and then today with the President, have they been calling? Has the President called? Has the Vice President called you? And what are you hearing from other undecided senators about how the White House is actually trying to persuade you beyond just these group meetings?
I had the opportunity to speak with the President today on the telephone, in addition to the lunch, and the administration is certainly making every official available. But, you know, at some point, it's not necessarily about a piece of specific evidence. It's about how we go forward and confront these horrible issues and problems and challenges that face our globe. And that's what each senator and each member of the House of Representatives and every citizen of this country has to grapple with and ultimately decide.
Senator Tammy Baldwin, thank you very much for joining us on this important night. Appreciate it.